Geary, the Parks Committee from August 25th, 2021 is now in session. Roll call, Alder Burnett,
Here.
Alder Gerlach,
Here.
and the chair, Alder Scannell, is present, and the vice chair, Alder Weary, is excused. He may be joining us a little later if he can get in. So let us move on to approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Alder Gerlach, seconded by Alder Burnett. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We have an agenda. I'll take a motion to approve our minutes from our last meeting.
Approve.
Moved by
Second.
Alder Burnett. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Our minutes are approved. And I'll pause now to make sure I'm not going too fast.
Okay, we can go to the next item.
Okay, on to business. Item number 1, consideration with possible action to accept the Americorps state planning grant in the amount of $65,613. Staff?
So the Parks Department applied for and we received a grant award from Americorps, which will cover the bulk of the cost to create a new position titled the Conservation Corps Coordinator. So the total cost for salary and benefits for this position for 1 year is $79,983. And the grant award is for $65,613. So the grant funding will go directly towards the salary and benefits of this position for 1 year. So per the grant agreement, the city will have to fund a grand total of $25,000 as a match to the grant. So part of the $25,000 would go towards the remaining salary that the grant doesn't fund in its entirety. But the bulk of the funding would go towards other items such as travel expenses, a new computer, cell phone, office furniture, supplies to manage the grant, attending a conference, and then also consulting fees for Americorps. So this is, as I mentioned, this is a 1-year position and will run from the date of hire, and it would expire on 8/14 of 22 if we approve this grant. So over the next year, this position would be responsible to manage all aspects of the planning grant and also put together a second Americorps program grant proposal. So the second grant proposal is basically a 3-year implementation grant. So the individual that's hired in this first year would be responsible to figure out all of the details of implementing this program, which includes selecting the projects, calculating staffing needs, and determining the cost to implement a 3-year Conservation Corps program. In addition, they would look for alternate funding sources as a match to the Americorps second grant. Once they do all of the research, then they'll apply for the second implementation grant. And they'll do all of this planning over this next year so that if the second grant is approved by the city and by Americorps, we can then hire the people right away and get that program into fruition. So after the year is up of this first planning grant next fall, if the second grant is approved, then it would turn from a planning position into an implementation position. So their position would then be funded potentially for another 3 years, and they would be responsible to hire all of the employees to run the program. They would be responsible to do all of the coordination of implementation of whatever projects we decide to move ahead with. And in addition, they would do all the grant reporting that's necessary. And they would do all of the supervisory duties also throughout the program to run that program. So that's what would happen the next 3 years as phase 2 of this position. So we do currently have enough money in our 2021 budget to absorb the costs for 2021. And we're able to do so because we purposely didn't fill a seasonal position that we had budgeted for in the recreation department. So we were hopeful that we would get this grant, so we purposely didn't fill it this year. And then if this grant is approved and we do fill the position, we would then build the position into our 2022 budget to fund it through 8/14 of '22. And so per the city policy, the city council does have to formally approve accepting the award of any grant. So that's actually the motion I'm looking for, is to authorize approval of the grant so that we can move ahead with it. And then there is one additional step in the process. So last night, the Personnel Committee approved adding this position to the city's table of organization chart. And they did make it contingent upon the city council approving the grant award. So they have already approved the position contingent upon city council approval. And then obviously I'm looking to you to see if you're willing to approve accepting the grant.
Any questions, comments from anyone?
I will make a motion.
Go right ahead.
Okay, I move that we approve acceptance of the Americorps State Planning Grant.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion by Alder Gerlach, seconded by Alder Brunette. If there's no other discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Let's know when you're ready, James. We are set for the next item.
Item number 2. Consideration of possible action on the request by Alder Brunette to give staff update on the Lamantria dispar issues in Green Bay.
So I would recommend we just open it up to Alder Jesse Brunette to give a brief description.
Thank you, Director Ditchite. Thank you, Chairman Scannell. Dare I say the former name, gypsy moth? That's what this is in regards to for those who may not
How about
know.
just that moth?
The moth.
I
So,
looked it up.
okay. So I have some constituents who live near Henesraw Park. If you remember, this is where the fat tire biking situation occurred. My district is heavily wooded, a lot of conservancy, a lot of city-owned parks, or wooded areas. So the moth is a concern in my area, in my district. And according to emails I exchanged with Director Ditchite and Brian Pilot, who's on the call here, city employee, gypsy moth is, another situation we're dealing with. I should say the moth, another situation we're dealing with, in addition to emerald ash borer, which I don't think is an offensive term at all. So we'll keep calling it that. So I just want to let you all know that I have a constituent who circulated a petition, and the petition says, "We, the undersigned, are concerned citizens who urge our leaders to act now to treat the parks, woodland, homes being affected by the zone." I have about, 60 or so signatures. I'll submit this to Director Ditchite so he can let the council know when it gets to the full council. So with that, I don't know what the official action or recommendation will be, but that's the background.
And
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, for additional information, we can open the floor to our city forester, Brian Pilot, to kind of tell you or give you a summary of what the issues are and what we've done to date and kind of what to expect in the future.
I would love to hear that.
We don't have to open the floor to ask
No.
him to
Staff, right.
speak, do we? Because
No, you
he's
don't.
staff.
Yep.
I'm very much in favor of hearing what he has to say.
Are you there, Brian?
Yep, I'm here. I didn't know if anybody had a specific question or you just wanted me to start talking.
On
So-
what's been done and the condition, where we're at kind of now, and what to expect in the future.
Sure. So I'll give you just a brief background history on the caterpillar, the moth. It's been in Green Bay, Fox Valley area since the late 80s, early 90s. It's been in Wisconsin since the 1960s. And the way that this pest, it's an invasive insect. It came from Europe. And it had slowly spread across the United States from the East Coast in the mid 1800s. So it is a widespread issue. It's been a prevalent issue for, going on for 150 years in the country. And what we see with it is that it has a 10-year life cycle, that it kind of peaks every 10 years. You may see 2 to 3 years at the peak of that cycle where there's noticeable defoliation from the pest. And we do get a lot of phone calls from the public because it's mainly a nuisance issue. If you're familiar with this and you experience it, it's a caterpillar in its destructive form. It starts out very small. It's about 1/8 of an inch. And when it hatches, nobody sees it. But by mid-June, first part of July, they can be about 4 inches long. They're long, they're unsightly, they're hairy. They're eating a lot of leaves, so they're dropping a lot of waste from the trees on people's patios, driveways, coffee cups, you name it. I've heard every story about how these things affect people's lives. So the last big cycle that we had was in 2009, 2010. The population crashed. We're now at 10 years later, so we're seeing the peak of that 10-year cycle again. Numbers started ramping up last year in 2020, a little bit in 2019. So I'm expecting that this is our peak year, but we may see elevated numbers, population next year in 2022 as well. So what we did in the last year and a half is we do monitor the oak trees, because that's predominantly the tree of favor that they like to go after. And we do these activities in the fall when the leaves come off. We can look, they're called egg mass surveys. So we're looking for the egg masses on the trees. We can take a count. We can get an estimation of what the numbers are going to look like the following spring when the caterpillars hatch. Caterpillars hatch in May. They are caterpillars. They feed, they get bigger. By the middle of July, they pupate, and then they turn into a moth. And basically at that point, the destruction of the pest is done. They don't feed when they're moths. They reproduce for a couple weeks, they lay egg masses, and they're done for the year. So for this year, we're out of the destructive phase. And then we're just waiting for fall to do those egg mass surveys. What we did last fall, because the numbers were going up in certain parts of town, again, there's oak trees all across state, all across the city, but there were some really hotspot areas, namely the St. Philip's Park and Sullivan Park, Baird Place, Beaumont Park. There's one big oak tree by the Chapel Garden, and then there's a stand of oak trees along South Quincy, kind of by Aldo Leopold, that we were getting calls from there on the street trees. So we treated those trees with a systemic insecticide. And what that does is it delays the development of the caterpillar, and essentially they just stop feeding. They don't turn into moths. It was a new treatment that we did this year. It's the same product that we use for emerald ash borer, but it was the first time we used it for gypsy moths, and it was quite effective. The trees that were completely defoliated last year in summer of 2020 really showed no signs of defoliation this year. So that's good news. It's something that we can use in our toolbox going into the future. But again, it's a 10-year peak. I think we're at the peak of this cycle. So I don't know if we'll be doing treatments next year. That'll be determined after we do the egg mass surveys to see what the populations are going to look like.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Yeah, Jesse Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Pilat. That was very helpful. Good to know this sort of thing. I guess one specific question. Going forward, do you plan on engaging with the state, perhaps the United Nations, to help address it on the far west side? I think that was one of the concerns the constituent had, was can we rely on some state resources to help slow the population?
Sure. So at the state level, and again, going back historically, DNR and Department of Ag work together in coordination to, one, they monitor the gypsy moth populations across the state with trapping programs that they use. And then they determine if there's enough acreage that could be affected, they do have an aerial spray program in the state, and that's completely run through Department of Ag. And the last time that Brown County was sprayed would have been like in the early 2000s. And I looked at the DATCAP program today. The only place that they're spraying in the state is on the far western side of the state. So any type of a large scale treatment program would have been handled at the state level, and they're not. It's an invasive pest, but because of its cyclical activity, and it's not a pest that kills trees. It defoliates trees. And in fact, if you drive by Southwest High School, there's a big oak tree right out along Packerland Drive. That tree was infested with gypsy moths, caterpillars, defoliation, everything this year is completely leafed out again. So trees can handle 1 or 2 years of this pest. And that's where at the state level, they just deal with it as a seasonal pest. There has been no large scale regional type of effort to control this, just because it is a pest that's kind of naturalized. There's soil fungus and virus and insects that parasitize the egg masses when the populations get high and kind of keep it in check. So I don't know if that really answers your question, Alderman Burnett, but that's.
Yeah, that's fine. Unless any other committee member has any questions or comments, I guess as long as Director Ditchite can update the Parks Committee late fall on how the egg mass, survey or placement or whatever Mr. Pilat was mentioning, I think that would be adequate. So I'd be happy to make a motion to receive and place on file.
There's a motion to receive and place.
Second.
Before we vote,
there is somebody on the line.
Alder Ditchite.
I'm sorry. Before you vote, I just wanted to mention that somebody entered our meeting mid-conversation. I don't know if they want to speak to this topic or not.
Well, I would move to open the floor. If the
Well,
we can and find out if they want to talk about it.
Motion to open the floor.
Second.
Second by Alder Burnett. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, caller, are you here to talk on this item about the Lamantria dispar?
No,
Yes?
this is Angus. No, I am not.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Well then, motion to close the floor.
Motion to close the floor.
Second.
Motion to close the floor by Alder Gerlach, seconded by Alder Burnett. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, before we vote though, I would like to say, or ask, good to know. I was always worried that it was a much more pernicious insect that would, butterfly's an insect, ain't it? Well, anyway, varmint to the trees. I've got 5 oaks. Would you recommend, like next May? I remember in 2009 we used to put burlap around the trees. Would you recommend that we do that next year?
So the burlap serves as a place for the caterpillars to hide during the daylight.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to be vigilant to go out in the late afternoon, early evening and pick all the caterpillars off the burlap, then you're reducing in the numbers. But if you look at one single egg mass has about 800 to 1,000 eggs in it.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's you're reducing the number, but it's certainly not an effective control. Yeah. If you've got a really high level of activity, I would recommend treating those individual trees. That'd be the most effective thing to do.
All right, and I would just call you basically, or is there treatments that we can do, citizens? Is there something we can get?
No, not as an individual. It'd have to be done by a certified applicator.
All right. All right, thank you very much. Good to know. Anything else by anyone?
Just a quick question,
Certainly.
in case someone should ask. The city forestry department does not come out and treat individuals, treat city-owned trees, correct?
We treat city trees on a determined basis. So like we did some treatments of city-owned trees for gypsy moth, Lamentria dispar this last year. Other than that, the only treatments that we've been doing is for emerald ash borer on city trees.
Okay,
But
so,
we do,
so Alder Scannell can say, come treat my trees, right?
if it's a city tree, we would look at it. Yeah, we don't do any private tree treatment.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, well, I don't know if there's one I think might be, maybe not. But yeah, I would probably call and get a consult on who I could get a hold of and whatnot. So, I mean, you can.
Yeah,
help.
definitely.
Yeah. So, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Can you repeat who made the motion and who seconded it?
Alder Burnett made the motion. Alder Burnett seconded.
I made the motion. Alder Gerlach seconded it.
No,
I think you said I did both. You said I did both.
Oh,
that's right. You were, yes, I'm sorry. Yep.
Thank you.
I do everything for this committee.
Oh.
Let me know when you're ready, James. We are set for the next item.
Okay, we are on to informational. Director's report on updates and recent activities of the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Department.
I just have a few things to add other than the report that's already in the agenda packet. So the pools are closing. As you know, our season is coming to an end. So it was a successful year, even though we had to have one pool closed due to a shortage of staffing. But that kind of leads into my next discussion topic is now Bay Beach is still going to be open for the weekends through next month. And we do have a staffing shortage there still. So especially with students going back to college, we lost a lot of ride operators recently. So we're currently reviewing options with staff to figure out how we deal with that staffing shortage through September. And I'm sure you'll be hearing more in the next week or so. Also, there's a ribbon cutting ceremony at Navarino Park tomorrow at 6 o'clock, and it's to dedicate the official opening of the interior circular walk that runs through the middle of the park, along with the new lighting that's been put in there. So you're all welcome to attend if you'd like. It's 6 o'clock tomorrow evening. And then the last item I want to mention is our 4K program, the nature-based 4K program at the sanctuary officially kicks off next week. Monday is the first day of school. So just wanted to mention that. So that concludes my director's report.
Any questions or comments from anyone? Alder Burnett.
Yeah, thank you. A little uncomfortable discussion, but I need to ask regarding the situation at Colburn. Obviously, Ms. Angus is on the line. Chairman Scannell, I know you had sent out some emails, but as a courtesy to the public, was this part of the written director's report? Is there any input you can provide when it would be an agenda item?
Well, as I wrote to her, if there's an actionable item she wants us to do, that would definitely be an item we could put on put on our agenda. Other than that, I'm not exactly sure. I know she's met with staff. I think she's met with O'Leary too. So, I mean, it's not like her concerns are being ignored. So if there's an actionable item, that would definitely be on our next agenda. In talking with Director Dishtite last week, I just couldn't discern what the actionable item would be. So I thought perhaps Alder Weary, who's far more familiar with this than I am, might be the one to go to make that agenda item. But
Mr. Chairman, in the director's report, there was comment there about trees clearing. Now, full disclosure, is that enough to allow us to open the floor just to hear what her comments are in regard to Colburn?
I
I'm not trying to be difficult. You know, it's a flooding issue.
Right, and as I spoke with Alder or Director Dish, I always want to make you an Alder Director. We're here to do city business, and I want our committee work to be doing business. And I'm not sure what we would do without an actionable item. I mean, I'm not sure what the purpose of opening the floor would be, to hear her speak on her opinion on things. What do we do with that? I think I'd rather wait for an actionable item that we can, get our teeth into and do something for her. Otherwise, I think, staff is trying to work things through. I believe the Alder is certainly involved, or would be involved if need be. So I'm not sure. I mean, to open the floor to do what, Alder Burnett? What?
Just to allow, again, it would have to be specific, be something in the director's report that she could speak to, and I don't see anything there other than clearing of the trees. Is that correct?
The only thing that's in the director's report is that construction is underway. I'd have to look to see if it's in the forestry report in regards to the trees at Colburn. But I do want to just mention that typically a director's report is just a report by staff telling you of what's happening in the Parks Department and what we're working on. It's not necessarily a public format agenda item typically. So I don't know per Robert's rules whether or not it would be acceptable to even open the floor for this. That would be up to the chair to make that call. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you.
Yeah, Alder Gerlach?
I would like to definitely don't ever want to talk about Colburn Park when Alder Weary isn't here. Just like I wouldn't want to talk about Hinistra Park without Alder Brunette. And I hope you wouldn't be talking about Old Preble Neighborhood Park when I'm not there. I'd like Alder Weary to see if he has an actionable item he wants to put on the agenda, working with his constituent, and then we could take it up at that time. At this point, I think we just, well, maybe I'll just stop talking.
If you don't mind, I've watched a lot of public meetings, and quite frankly, I don't recall ever opening the floor for a director's report. And I'll be honest, I don't recall that. So you're correct, Director Ditchai. Just my feeling of interacting with the public, and it's just one of those things. If someone from the public wants to comment on something in the director's report, we don't have to respond. We don't have to offer any action. We don't have to do any of that, but sometimes just allowing someone to address this committee can go a long way to cut down on any frustration. So I don't know if it would be recognized. I doubt it would get a second, but I would just make a motion to allow Ms. Angus to address the committee for 2 minutes.
Alder Sawyer?
Oh, yes, thank you, Chair. We had talked about this in the past too, at council meetings, in the beginning, if there was a forum, I don't know exactly where that all went, but there would be a forum for citizens if they wanted to speak for a short amount of time. That could be opening up Pandora's box, or it could be just being. So I don't know if any of the other alders remember that and where that might have gone. I understand where Alder Burnett's coming from. But, like I said, with all the committees, we have actionable items, or, they're on the agenda and you deal with those accordingly. And there's been a few times where we've gone off course with an agenda item and we have to get back to what the agenda item is. And if we need to extend it, then we go to put in another communication to deal with that request at another meeting. So anyway, that's just my comment.
Yeah, I remember that discussion, and for myself, I mean, this is city business. We're here to do city business. This isn't a forum for anything, even and I understand the wanting to do that to a certain extent. We want to certainly be receptive to our constituents, to the citizens of Green Bay, or even someone who's not a citizen who's got something to offer on an agenda item. But I really feel, I want to be professional. I want to be business. This is business. And certainly if we didn't have avenues for people to talk to staff, people to talk to alders. I mean, there's communication. Things are happening. I don't know why we would take our committee time to address it unless we have a specific reason to do that. I just don't, just opening up for forum kind of goes against my grain. I understand there was an argument made for it to start out our council meetings with it, but I didn't agree with that then, and I'm certainly not sure about the committee level. I have a specific job to do, and I don't think this is part of it. This is not appropriate at this time. There's certainly many avenues for a citizen to approach staff, to approach an alder, and to come up with actionable items to come to it. But otherwise, this isn't a forum. This isn't Facebook. This isn't a soapbox for people to stand up and speak. Or, I just don't know what the purpose served. Other than, of course, as Alder Burnett said, to open up things for democracy, for people to, participate in their government. But I don't think, for myself, this is an appropriate way for people to be involved with their government. Not committees. It's a business. We're doing business here, and we have certain constraints and rules we follow. And I think we should professionally have certain expectations. And I don't think creating a forum for people to speak is appropriate and necessary. I just don't follow that. So, Alder Gerlach?
I agree with you 100%, Alder Scannell, and we've already spent a lot of time talking about this. I think it's very clear we all pretty much agree that we'd like Alder Weary to be involved, and we'd like it to be done appropriately through Robert's Rules of Order, which is the rules of order that we follow. And if you would entertain a motion, I would move that we receive this report and place it on file.
Well, first, let's, Alder Burnett made a motion to open the floor. Is there a second? Then the motion dies. And now, Alder Gerlach, a motion to receive and place on file?
Yes, please.
Is there a second for that? I'll make the second.
Okay. You didn't hear me. Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Okay. Motion by Alder Gerlach to receive and place on file. Seconded by Alder Burnett. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes. And our next meeting is September 15th, 2021. It's 5:32. I guess I will assume I'm chairing unless Alder Weary shows up. Should we start? Well, we got to wait till. Do we have to wait till 6 o'clock, Alder Dishai? Alder.
No, you don't.
Could
No,
you just make that your first name?
no, I think you can start at any time you're ready. But we do have to formally adjourn from this meeting.
Adjourn for this. So we have a motion to adjourn, and
Second.
let's vote on that in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we are. Should we start in?
I have a question. This is Janet Angus. How do I file an actionable request when I've asked the park staff to do that and I've got no remedies from the park staff regarding my issues? How do I do that?
You're Alder.